Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I'm Scott. It is the week ending Sunday, August 20th. I read 5 books this week. I'm going to talk about the books, or 4 of the books at least, then what else I've been reading this week. And then at the end of the video, I will talk about the 5th book because I'm going to be going into spoilers on that one. So if anybody wants to stop before I spoil anything, you can stop near the end of the video. I will also give you a warning then so that you know. It's a romance book, so you won't necessarily be too spoiled, but I go into my thoughts about why I'm ranking the book the way I am ranking it. Have a little bit of sore throat. Sorry if my voice sounds different. So, the first book I finished this week was Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Quite a well-known book, just one that I have never read before. I mentioned last week this collection here, which I didn't read much of it. I listened most of it on Audible. And I suggest if you have an Audible account or access to audiobooks, go for the Rachel McAdams version of this, which was very good. I also have another version which is available on Premium Plus, which is done by another narrator. I don't know her name. I know her first name is Tara. And it's fine, but it's not as good as Rachel McAdams' version. So I don't know if Rachel McAdams does any of the other books in the series, but definitely does this one. So if you can, listen to that one. I did not expect to enjoy this book too much. It just didn't seem like it was my type of book. A young girl who is super, super chatty. I thought, well, I'm not going to like her. She was actually my favorite character in the book. I have started the second book in the series, and she's older now than she was in this book, and loses some of the charm that she had, but she's still a very likable character in this book so far. But I actually enjoyed most of the characters in here. I know I mentioned when I first started reading it last week, I talked about Miss Rachel, who's the gossipy neighbor who gets in everybody's business. I even liked her, even though I don't usually like that type of character. This was just an overall a great read. I enjoyed it. It had, humor and drama and not romance like the beginnings of romance. I mean, Anne in here is like 10 or 11 at the beginning and almost 16, I believe, at the end of the novel. So romance isn't such a big thing, but it does set up for the future. And anybody who has read the books or seen the series, I assume, I haven't done either of those yet, knows what they are set up for. Not really much else to say about this. It's just a very good book. I give this 4.5 stars. The second book I finished, which I don't have a physical copy of, is The Hot One by Lauren Blakely, who, if you recall, I have read previously Double Pucked by her and The Sexy One. I read The Sexy One because I like Double Pucked so much. As with those 2 books, this one has quite a bit of sex in it. I don't think it's written as well or is as interesting as it was in Double Puck, and I feel the same way for the Sexy One. It just didn't hold my interest as much. As with the Sexy One, the Hot One, kind of take shortcuts. It's a short book, although longer than the Sexy One, and it's about a couple. Well, they used to be a couple. They were college sweethearts, They were both in law school. He broke up with her because he felt he had to choose between her and becoming a lawyer and going to school for that. And he made that choice. And then, like, I don't know, 10 years later or whatever, they randomly meet each other and he wants to get back with her essentially. And she is not a lawyer, she's a massage therapist now, and there's reasons for that. And she comes from a family, her father was a lawyer before her. She was just as driven as Tyler, the young man, was, but she chose this different career path. And like with the sexy one, it's like, oh, we have these things set up, and then it's just like, eh. Like she's searching for her father, who she hasn't talked to pretty much since college, and then she finds out where he is, and then she just decides, oh, I'm not going to do anything about it. If you can get past the fact, reading these books, like I said, it's was a collection of 4 books, kind of interrelated with characters. Tyler appeared in the first book as the main guy, as I believe Clay, as his best friend. And the next book involves, can't remember her name, but she is uh, a good friend of the female main character in this one. So in the fourth one, I'm sure probably has a character that's mentioned in the third book, or possibly the second. So it's a collection of 4 books, interrelated, about people finding love, whether it's with someone you shouldn't do in a nanny, or someone you screwed up with in college, or whatever the next one is. And has to do with being pregnant, I assume, because I believe it's called the knocked up one. There's not a lot of drama. There's too much description of sex, which is fine. Like in Double Puck, there was more description of sex, but there was variety to it, and it was just more interesting to read. And and I'll have to admit, I'm a bit of a square when it comes to certain things. Like, oh, you're having sex in your place of work. It just uh, no. I'm going to give this one a 3.5. The next book I completed was Volume 5 of the collected short stories of Guy de Maupassant. I am not going to do what I did last time and go over each story, because that took up a large chunk of the video. And I'm just not even going to bother to go over stories that I didn't find particularly interesting. The longest story in here was called Monsieur Parent, or Mr. Parent, I guess. um, it's quite long, about a man whose wife is cheating on him, and whose kid is possibly not his own, and his uh, maid tells him so, and he throws her out, and she says, I'm taking the kid's not yours, and they leave. And basically, it's his life after that. It's a de Maupassant story, so it doesn't end well for the guy. Unlike the first novella from him, Boule de Suif, which is a classic, this one wasn't particularly interesting to me. So, you know, the overall collection kind of has it set up by what is usually the opening novella, and the opening novella just didn't do it this time. Another story, like one in the last collection, about somebody who is dying, and basically people waiting around for them to die and being dicks about it. It's called Queen Hortense, and again, not interesting particularly at all. Timbuktu, which has an African man in it, so talks like the stereotypical African man in stories from the 18th and 19th century. Again, not much happens in it. a little bit uncomfortable to read based on, our point of views, possibly from now. I didn't particularly find it interesting, even if I was able to set that aside. This one, probably more than the other ones, was a lot of like, not so much stories, but excerpts, like a day in a life kind of thing. And there's one called Waiter a Bock, which I assume is a beer, and basically about a man who stays in a bar all day long, and he talks to a guy there, and basically says there's nothing else in life worth not being here. So it's a very pleasant collection. There's one called Forgiveness about a I will say a simple woman, but more maybe a sheltered woman by her family who marries a man who almost immediately begins cheating on her. And when she begins to suspect that something is wrong, he actually introduces her to his mistress and they become friends. Eventually, the mistress dies, and the woman realizes that, oh, they were having an affair. And it's about forgiveness. That was probably the best story in the entire collection. I wouldn't say it's the best story of his that I've read overall, but in this collection, there's one called In the Spring about a guy who sees a girl like really attracted to her, and some dude who has had crap luck with love prevents this guy from going after her and says, "You'll thank me later." That's the story. I, Guido Maupassant was going through some things, I would say. I mean, he actually was. I believe uh, I may be incorrect, but I believe he had syphilis or he had some disease which eventually killed him, and he could have been going through that while he was writing these stories. Let's see. And the final story is A Queer Night in Paris. Oh, it's about a painter, and it wasn't a very interesting story. I believe I rated the last two volumes as 4 stars each. This one I'm giving a 3 star. It just wasn't particularly interesting overall. I did like Forgiveness, but other than that, I don't think any of the other stories will stay with me. Some of them in this book that I finished 3 or 4 days ago aren't staying with me now. And the fourth book I'm going to talk about, but the fifth book that I finished, is Glitterland by Alexis Hall. Alexis Hall, if you recall, in a little of a rant that I went on in a vlog earlier, also wrote Something Fabulous, which I considered at the time, possibly still now, the worst fiction book of the year that I've read. My daughter, who has read both books, but had only read Glitterland at first, suggested I read this. She gave it a 5 star. I'm not going to give it a 5 star, but I will admit that it is vastly superior to Something Fabulous. She did suggest that I listen to it on audiobook, which I did not. I read the physical copy because one of the characters, Darian, speaks in dialect. I actually didn't find the dialect in the book to be a problem at all, so if you do plan on reading it, make your choice based on how you feel about dialect in writing. But the two characters, mainly it's about the two characters, Darian, who is, I will be nice and say, he's a simple man. He's a very nice man, but he's not the smartest man. And Ash, who is bipolar, very smart, doesn't always handle things the best way. It's written from Ash's point of view, and he has suffered some mental issues. He's been in hospital. He has tried to commit stuff previously. Words I won't say. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for him or not, but he has done things before. So, um, and they meet one night, and Ash is looking for it to basically be just a meaningless sex thing, and then he somehow can't kind of get rid of Darian, and he kind of doesn't want to get rid of Darian, and it's about their relationship. This one's a little hard for me to rate because I do think it was good. I do think it was a little sparse. There's some added bonus material which I don't think contributes too much. So I'm basing this purely on the book itself and not including the added material. It's probably somewhere between 3.5 and 4 stars for me. I think I'm going to put it at 3.5 stars simply because the scene where Ash ends up saying something quite mean about Darian, I think was just a little over the top, and the character who gets him to do that is just it was just pure plot device. And as I have said previously, I don't mind being manipulated. I mind when I can feel the strings being tugged. And that was the one time in this book I felt like, oh, I'm a marionette. So, uh, but I do think that this will be the last Alexis Hall book I read. If I had read this first, I might have said, "Yeah, I can read one again." But I'm more like, okay, this puts the bad taste of something fabulous out of my mouth, and I will just leave it at that. Thank you, Alexis Hall. We shall now part with fonder memories than we had before. As I mentioned before, I have started book two, Anne of Avonlea, in the Anne of Green Gables series. She is a teacher now, although she's still quite young. Um, at the point I'm in, she's about to start her first day of teaching school, and there's been talk about what kind of discipline that she will do, which many people advocating for whippings, and saying that she is going to use more positive reinforcement. I'll be interested in seeing what direction that works. I can't picture Anne as giving corporal punishment, but I mean, we'll see. I don't know that I am going to like this book as much as Anne of Green Gables. I think a problem that I can see that I don't have with it yet, but I can see is that too many people are enchanted by Anne. It worked in the first novel because one, Anne is a very self-critical character, and two, there are enough characters in there like Rosie Pie. No, well, there were Pie sisters, I believe, who weren't quite fond of her. I could have the name wrong. Um, but I don't know if that's the case. She's already charmed her cantankerous next door neighbor in this book. So I'm hoping, well, I like Anne myself, that she doesn't have like everybody falling in love with her. So we shall see. I read one more chapter of Agatha Christie's Giant Bread, but I kind of have set that aside to finish these other novels to get them out of the way. I plan to have this book read by the end of the month because I need to start doing the 5 year battles. Agatha Christie and Giant's Bread is in the second volume of that, so I need to make sure I have that done. I'm probably going to start the Knocked Up one, I believe, by Lauren Blakely, because I have this collection of 4 books, so I'm probably going to finish the 4 books. It's inoffensive. It's fine. I mean, in it adds a book to my collection that I can finish rather quickly. I don't know if I will start yet on volume 6 of the collected short stories of Guy de Maupassant. We shall see. I will eventually. I just don't know if I'm going to do it in the next week. And I think right now that is all that I am reading. So let's talk about Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. If you haven't read this and you plan to or you don't like spoilers, now is your time to go away. I am going to go into spoilers. I'm not going to go into heavy spoilers, I don't think, but I'm going to go into enough spoilers that, if spoilers aren't your thing, now is the time to go. Okay, this is about a sham marriage, 2 people who decide to get married for their own reasons. Natalie has a requirement that she gets married before she gets her trust fund. In August is trying to start a vineyard in memory of his best friend because it was his dream. If he was your best friend, we go like, dude, this is stupid. Have your own dream. You don't need to um, do this. But regardless, so he needs a loan. She needs a trust fund. I won't go into all the reasons about why she needs a trust fund. It has to do with stuff that happened in New York. She's not. Her family is in the vineyard career. She's not necessarily right now. She was doing financial work, had some trouble, got canned. They almost had a thing before the start of the novel, but he screwed it up by being a dick. His natural MO. So they are kind of enemies at the start of the novel. Uh, she proposes that they get married so that she get her trust fund, and he can use the marriage as a way to get a loan. Now, before they do get married, which that's not a spoiler, you know it's going to happen. Um, her father says he will release some money for the trust fund if she doesn't get married. She says no. It's kind of retconned later that it's because no, she really wanted to marry August, but it's like no, it's because she doesn't want her father to be able to just control everything, I think. So, also, August's best friend Sam's father, who was his superior, I forgot to say, August was a Navy SEAL, which is unbelievable because this guy has no discipline at all. And I don't buy it at all. Anybody who's ever been in the military should be offended that this guy could. I'm offended, and I was never Navy SEAL. I was in the Air Force. I worked in an office, and I'm offended like this schmuck is in any way associated with me. So, but Sam's father offers to contribute money to this, so he doesn't need the loan anymore. But that he doesn't say anything to Natalie about it because he decides basically, oh, this is the woman I want to be with, so I'm going to go into marriage, and then I'm going to talk her in to staying married to me. He also, despite her experience, she, like I said, she wasn't currently working with her family's vineyard and stuff, but she has knowledge and experience, but he won't let her help at all. Again, This is a Navy SEAL, somebody who's supposed to know about teamwork. And, I'm going to do it on my own, girl. Um, they get married in it's supposed to be a fake marriage. They end up having sex, but not penetration for a while because he's holding out because he doesn't want to gift her with his massive schlong unless she's in it to stay. Eventually, they do have sex, and of course, it's the most amazing sex she's ever had. Even though I can't see any woman being with this guy. He is. I understand some people like this, and that's fine. And if you like this novel, it's fine. This is all my point of view. This is my own prejudices and my own thinking about relationships. He's very protective, doesn't want her to do anything by herself without him being there to protect her. It's like he doesn't realize that she has lived all these years without him by her side. He treats her like a child, calls her princess. Which, I mean, I know sometimes as a nickname for a woman, that's fine. But the way he does it, it's like, no, he looks at her as this little princess that needs to be taken care of and coddled and kept safe. Okay, here's what happened. One, she is thinking about going to New York. Actually, goes to New York, starts to make a plan, and then decides no, she'd rather be with one kid here. So she gives up that, which apparently is a thing in Tessa Bailey novels, is that the woman gives up something that they were trying to do, but oh no, they didn't really want that. They wanted this guy. And he doesn't tell her about the loan from uh, his friend's father. It, the father ends up telling her about it, and she's just like, oh, okay. And this guy, August, is just, he's a major asshole. He's a horrible person. And they don't really get into what happened to Sam because Sam is dead. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's because of August that Sam is dead because it seems August was the leader. And yeah, if that's your leader, yeah, you're probably going to have some casualties. Again, this isn't a person who can be on a team, and it makes no sense to think that he is. Tessa Bailey's sex scenes are boring. Even the scenes in Lauren Blakely's the hot one, the sexy one, probably whatever's going to happen, the knocked up one or the one after that, are far more interesting than these. It's ridiculous. And also, look at that guy. Why do you do covers like this? If the character in the novel is supposed to fill suits so that he looks like he's the equivalent of 3 men. He's supposed to be hugely jacked, and this is just a skinny guy. This looks like a normal looking guy. It's like I don't think this was as bad as Something Fabulous. I'm trying to decide if this is as bad as The Hating Game. I forget Joshua Templeman. That was a character in the Hating Game. I think he probably ends up doing worse things after the novel than August is in this one, but I can see that coming. This one also, oh yeah, also at the end, again, spoilers. I told you a while ago, so spoilers. They stay married. They have kids, but the thought of him as a parent is horrifying. And yes, he has all girls because, of course, he does. Because he gets to be the protector. Grr. Yeah, 1.5 stars, and I think that's being generous. The only reason I not getting worse is because I gave one to Something Fabulous, and I do have to admit it's better than Something Fabulous, but 1.5 stars. So that is it for this week. I keep telling myself to stop reading romances. I really need to. I need to see, oh, that one, you read one romance a month. That's excellent. Read that and then don't read any more romances that month. But I'm a fool. Anyway, please like and subscribe. Offer some good romance books, I guess, or good other books. I'm looking at good mystery books like Agatha Christie type or cozy mysteries. That's kind of the mystery I kind of like. Uh, I have a whole bunch of fantasy novels that I have not read that I need to read. I'm going to be coming out with a video about a TBR that I'm going to be doing for September. If you know me, I don't usually do TBRs, but my daughter has a reading challenge, which I'm going to participate in. So thank you, and I'll see you next week.